Hey, what's shaking, everyone? So, I wanted to make a little mini series, and I want to highlight different important mayoral, senatorial, and House representatives. What I see is important seats that are up for election this year, and let you know who the candidates are at the top. And we're going to start, well, kind of in the wheelhouse of this channel. We're going to go right to the mayoral race in Portland. We all know who Ted Wheeler is, and if you haven't, I've done 3 videos on him specifically on this channel, which I consider to be very good work. A little self promotion out of the way to begin with, but also wanted to look at Ted's 3 main challengers in Teresa Rayford, Ozzy Gonzalez, and Sarah Iaroni. Um, I wish I could give you guys a optimistic outlook, but I don't see a lot of promise in either of those 3, and especially don't see any promise in Ted. I want to go ahead and get Ozzy out of the way to begin with, because if I was to throw my hat into the ring and support anybody, it would probably be Ozzy. I think he kind of has his head on straight. He's fairly concerned with the homeless problem that's going on there, and he also comes from a background of small business development as well as a more economic background than anybody else presents at the current time. Like, the most important thing that I got from the interview here is the little byline of why people should vote for you. Well, for him, it's because he wants to make decisions that are best for Portland, not best for his political career, which is pretty standard fare, but especially important Portland, you're going to need somebody like that. He has a technical background and professional expertise in Portland that needs addressing. Like climate change, yuck, population growth, and affordability changes that he's facing, as well as, he's, in my research, he's the most pro cop, but he is on the side of reform. So I'd give a tacit recommendation if there's any viewers out there that are in the Portland area, consider Ozzy Gonzalez. And the other write-in, she finished just ahead of Ozzy in the final mayoral primaries. So she's not one of the 2 finalists that are on the ticket. That's Ted Wheeler and the next person coming up after we get through a little bit of Teresa Rayford's background. So Teresa Rayford, the community organizer who founded Don't Shoot Portland after her nephew was shot to death in 2014 in a still unsolved case, finished a distant third in the mayoral's race in the May primary, just over 8% of the vote. And then she gained significant prominence because she was front and center in a lot of these Black Lives Matter rallies, and, well, that turned into protests and then eventually turned into riots. There's 100 days proof of that. So she is a very radical candidate. It's somebody I would not recommend on any level. She is for abolishment of the police and everything that Black Lives Matter stands for. Not a good candidate whatsoever. And speaking of horrible candidates, we'll go right to the horse's ass herself. Sarah Iaroni. She finished just behind Ted Wheeler in the primary. And that is terrifying because she has come out and been in full-throated support of Antifa in Portland so far. And in this article here that I'm going to read, so she did an interview with Straight Talk, which is one of the talk shows locally in Portland, as far as I'm aware. And what she said on Straight Talk was, she declined to denounce the violent protests, says protesters' outrage with police is valid. A direct quote from her: peaceful protests, in my opinion, might not necessarily be moving the conversation forward. Terrific. Portland mayoral candidate Sarah Iaroni positions herself as more of a progressive alternative to incumbent Mayor Ted Wheeler. More progressive than Ted Wheeler. That is frightening. Who is seeking his second term? She's made police accountability a major part of her platform and has joined protesters on numerous occasions calling for racial justice and an end to police brutality. When asked if she would denounce the smaller group of nightly protests that have gone on for more than 70 nights at time of this, it's over 100 now, yay, whee, party. Yeah, irony declined. Great. I know nobody controls a social movement. We need to understand these protests are a part of healthy democracy. Peaceful protests, in my opinion, might not necessarily be moving the conversation forward. Oh, boy. Criminal activity is illegal, and of course, I don't condone it. She just said that peaceful protests might not be enough. Let's read a little bit more. What I'm focused on is ensuring police do not use violence and even lethal force against people who have done nothing wrong. As we have seen nightly and for decades, we must not take our focus off why these recent protests began, and reimagine public safety so we can save lives. I condemn arson, obviously. I also condemn the countless deaths of black individuals at the hands of police. Well, I wish he would learn how to count, because this year, the numbers from last year, 18 black unarmed men were shot and killed. Most of those ended up being justified, with only a handful of them being unjustified, and the officers were held accountable and justice was served. But of course, facts don't matter when you're dealing with Antifa sympathizers. There's a small group, usually of 200 people or fewer, who have gathered late each night outside of the Judicial Center, Federal Courthouse, and police precincts and union buildings, smashed windows, lit fires, and thrown objects at officers, including fireworks, rocks, and bricks. And yeah, she doesn't want to denounce any of this stuff, and that is your second leading candidate in the polls in Portland. It's not a bright future in the for the immediacy of Portland. Ted Wheeler is a no mayor, and he has demonstrated that on a nightly basis. And Sarah Ironi, the fact that she's nipping on his heels and has a very good chance of being elected mayor, doesn't show a lot of promise there. Teresa Rayford, who finished third, obviously Black Lives Matter supporter, Antifa sympathizer, multiple times has also joined in rallies. And as a distant fourth, Ozzy Gonzalez, I don't want to get his name wrong because I think that he is the strongest candidate out there, but he is unfortunately so far back, so far buried. But if you are out there, please support this man. He's going to give you the best opportunity in the next 4 years to return Portland to be a vibrant city, which it deserves to be. It's a beautiful place, so treat it as such, guys. Anyways, this is the first, and what I'm going to be doing daily, well, maybe not daily, but I'm going to cover a bunch of different races that are very important for the preservation of democracy in the country. So make an informed decision in November, because not voting and voting without a complete picture of what you're voting for are two very, very terrible decisions, especially with the importance of the elections coming up in November. But anyways, guys, thanks for taking the time to watch this. I really appreciate your support. If you'd like to hit that subscribe button or drop a like on this video, I'd greatly appreciate it. And yeah, I've been Don Consuelo, and I want you guys to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.